Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How we all doing today? Please, can I get a thumbs up to be sure that I can be heard? All right, okay. So I want to welcome each and everyone to yet another edition of Test Drive. Okay, so for those of us that are joining Test Drive for the first time, I say a big welcome to you. And for those of us who are returnees from our previous session, also welcome. So for those of us that are joining that doesn't know what Test Drive is a webinar where we drive everything testing, from showing you how to do things around testing, best practices, to sharing yeah. So Test Drive is a webinar where we drive things around testing. Yeah. So from showing you how to do everything around testing, best practices, sharing how tips on how we can become a better tester. So also I would like to introduce to us that we have a Slack community for sharing ideas where we can network and get job opportunities.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us once again. It's a pleasure to have you here. We are going to get started right away. With a couple of people in the house already. Let's do a quick 2-3 minutes to get to know ourselves. Like Ben rightly mentioned, test drive is that session where you get to learn and discourse and share ideas around things around quality assurance and test automation in particular. Test drive sees people from newbies to experts, so you're always welcome here. So let's take the introduction. I'm just going to go according to what I have on my list. I have Chairman, please go ahead. Just tell us about yourself and what you do.
Hi, good morning. Chioma is a software quality assurance engineer. Thank you.
Yeah, then I have Kenneth. Apologies if I didn't pronounce that correctly. Well, let's go around. Nuruddin, then Oluwasegun, then Ruth, then Samuel, Sadiq, Yomi. Yeah, please, you can introduce yourselves. Oh, okay. It seems everybody is shy to. Okay, Nuruddin is up. Go ahead. Okay, let's go ahead then. Bamilare, okay, we have Sadiq here. Sadiq, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Sadiq. I'm a software engineer. Nice to be here. Uh, Hoping to pick something very insightful from today's session. Thank you, Jafar.
Okay, so of course we'll not be able to take everybody. I think let's take 1, 2 more people, and then we can go. Lawrence, do you want to introduce yourself? Okay then. We're just going to ride on, so we do not take time. Um, So yes, of course, we have our guest speaker here with us already, and we're just going to get started with this session. Who's ready? I mean, use the emojis and let me know you're ready for this session. It's going to be interesting. Okay, so we're going to have the speech by, or let me say the lecture or the session by our guest speaker that you're going to have very soon, and then there will be a question and answer session, and of course we'll do our usual games session where you get to win cash prize for leading the leaderboard, if I should put it like that. Okay, so let's go into the session right away because of time. I'm going to invite our guest speaker to take it out from here. That's no other person than Fehintoluwa. So Fehintoluwa will be speaking to us about implementing mobile automation frameworks for Android and iOS. Ladies and gentlemen, you can do your round of applause for him. Use the emojis if you want to use your physical hand. That's also fine. Thank you very much. Welcome, Fehintoluwa Dahunsi, Senior Software Developer and Tester at Andela.
Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, definitely.
All right, great to be here. Thank you so much, Scandium, for giving me this invite. It's an honor. All right, so let me just go ahead and share my screen, share my slides, so we can just follow along. One moment. I have like 50 tabs open, so I'm trying to find the one that has my slides on it. Okay, I think I've discovered you. Yes, thank you. Great. All right, let me share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. All right, so about me, I'm a software developer in test at Andela, also a Google certified professional cloud, I misspelled cloud, forgive me. Also a Google certified professional cloud architect, love books and people, and I'm a strong believer, strong advocate of self-service and automation, all right? And that's my LinkedIn. So let's go right into it, right? So mobile automation, why and how, right? So I really like interaction. Sorry, I like these things to be interactive, right? So let me ask: does anybody here have experience with automation, right? And if you do, if you could just maybe briefly unmute and in like 1 or 2 seconds share your experience with test automation, and then that could also help. That's probably also going to help all of us, right? Because it could also let me know what I want to focus on in this part of things. So if you have any experience with with mobile test automation, if you could just indicate, that would be fantastic. I don't know if I'm not seeing anybody if I'm not seeing anybody indicating, or maybe because it's Saturday morning, or less, we're still in like weekend mood. All right, no problem. Let me just wait. This one, nobody's talking like this, but let us go ahead. Right. So let's go right into it.
Perhaps people are shy. I'm sure we have a couple of automation people. People have experience with mobile automation. Yeah, maybe we should get ahead with talk, and then I guess more people would come up.
All right. So the question is why automate mobile, right? And then the better question. So I put the better question is why automate at all, right? Because the same reasons why you automate mobile pretty much apply across the board, right? And there's a number of reasons, but I just decided to pick out the first couple, like just like 2 or 3 really, really important ones, right? And the first one I'd say is continuous integration, CI/CD basically, right? Now, what happens when you do automation is that you enable yourself to deploy a lot faster, right? Because you can bake in tests into your CI/CD suite, right? And that is absolutely invaluable, right? Because a major function of testing, a major importance of testing is increasing confidence, right? That's one of the most important roles of testing. Testing has to increase confidence, right? Because the whole point of having automated tests is so that we can deploy consistently, we can deploy accurately, like we can deploy quicker, right? For example, I remember when I was working at the very first company I started doing mobile automation with. So when the midst of a rebuilding at that point in time, right? So the app was being ported to the cloud, right? But what would happen was sometimes, right? Like because the entire app was being rebuilt from scratch, right? What would happen was we would test a product one day or we would test a feature one day, then the developers would push an update and it would break that former feature. So say for example, loans, right? So you're testing loans, but they've pushed an update to loans, but that update to loans broke cards, for example, right? So imagine if you had a banking platform or something like that. And that made testing take a lot of time because you have to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? But when you have automated tests, you're able to bake them into your CI/CD pipeline. And then once you have it in your CI/CD pipeline, then you can easily run tests every time you deploy. Then improved consistency and accuracy, right? The simple fact of the matter is we're human beings, right? We're human beings. So that means that we don't natively have the ability to continually to run the same test over and over and over again, right? In the exact same steps, right? We would likely skip steps, change things a little bit. So we'd likely skip steps, change things a little bit, move things around a little bit. So due to that fact, once you have automated tests, right, you have improved consistency and accuracy, right? So the last one I mentioned is enhanced test reporting and analysis, right? So the one I wanted to, because of the nature of the brief I was given for this, right? One thing I want to do is really highlight like things from my experience, right, that I think would be helpful for everybody. Now, enhanced test reporting and analysis, how this is really important, right, I'd say, is in the fact that, so there's this principle in testing, right, that bugs congregate, I can't remember exactly how it's put, right, bugs congregate in corners. So basically the idea is, usually, right, we find a large number of bugs around the same place, right? Now, what analysis does for us is, yes, thank you, Deflect Content, thank you so much, Dene. Yes, so what analysis does for you is it enables us to identify places where our tests are failing very consistently, right? And then when we find places like that, that usually tells us that, okay, this is probably a candidate for, there's something that we're doing wrong here that we need to review, right? So maybe that could either tell us that it's possible that we have a set of flaky tests, right? So if we have flaky tests, then we want to rewrite our tests, or the developers, we can take that back to the developers and say, okay, so this particular area is failing a lot, right? So if this is failing a lot, then we're probably doing something wrong here. And that can be really valuable information to have, right? Then the final thing I'd say is faster time to market, right? I think for a lot of us here, you're probably going to be working in one startup or the other, right? And startups are always trying to to the market, always trying to get there as fast as possible, They're always under so much pressure and all of that. Now, the truth is, test automation is something that a lot of the time people tend to undervalue because it's like, oh, we just need to get this done, and then especially depending on the culture at your workplace, your products, I've been doing organ-driven development and, your product manager is breathing down your neck and saying, push this out right now, get this out there, all of that, and then that's not really giving enough time to automate, right? But the truth is, automation is an investment that pays off in the long run, right? Because yes, you know, it might slow us down in the beginning, but eventually, right, we're going to run a lot faster. And, you know, I'm just giving like ways you can present it to whoever it is that you're working with, right? So this might slow us down in the beginning, or it might take longer in the beginning, but it's going to pay off us. It's going to pay us off in the long run, right? And then we're all going to be a lot happier for it. It's going to have happier testers, happier developers, happier product managers. You know, you're not finding a new bug every 24 hours. I remember I worked at one company, and when I joined the company, they had almost no test automation. And what that meant was, like, it was interesting because that was my first, I think that was one of the first international companies I worked with, right? And almost every day, support will be bombarded, like, with requests. This isn't working, this is broken, this, that, you know, and that puts a lot of pressure on the whole team, you know, both from the directors, the developers, you know. And one of the major functions of QA is to be a champion for quality, right? So your job is not actually just to test, right? Despite what some people might think, your job is to be a champion for quality. And that's a holistic process, right? Not just a single thing, it's a holistic process. So that means that there's times where you're going to have to push back and say, you know what, you hired me, you put me on this course of quality, right? And this decision you want to make right now is detrimental to quality. So let's not do this, right? Let's basically automate. So choosing the platform, right? And I just highlighted a couple of, the number of things you consider when you're choosing the platform. So I chose to highlight a couple of them, right? The first one is understanding your project requirements, right? So certain tests, for example, UI, when I speak eventually about all the different test frameworks, right, you're going to see more about that. But for example, XC UI tests is iOS's native UI automation platform. Now, that only works for iOS, right? One, it only works for iOS. Two, it only works with Objective-C and Swift, right? And if you're an iOS developer here, or you have any experience with iOS, you know that those are Apple's babies. You know, those are the only languages that it works with. So if you have a team where you have a cross-platform application, and I think well, this is not a statistic, I have not studied it, but a lot of the time in Nigeria, you're probably going to be developing an Android app, right, to start off before you go to an iOS app. Then you definitely can't use something like XC UI tests, right? So the requirements of your project are a very large factor in choosing what automation framework you want to go with. Now, this one is one that I think people don't really value enough, right? Because like there were a number of things I could mention, so I just chose the most important ones. People don't really value enough the importance of assessing the programming language skills of your team when you're choosing an automation framework, right? Because the truth is, if you want to choose an automation framework that is written in Java, but everybody on your team is a JavaScript developer, right? Now you've just saddled yourself with having to have everyone learn Java, right? So a lot of the time, it might actually be better for you to simply pivot, right? Just look for something similar that does the job in JavaScript or something like that, and then over time, you know, train your developers to switch to the other language. Or, and then like I said, understand your product requirements. For example, if you're a startup and you're like the first employee or like the QA manager, right? You can start to hire people that, you know, have the same set of skills, right? But you want to strongly consider the programming language skills of your team, right? Then another thing is consider performance and reliability, right? Because there are test automation frameworks that give you speed upfront, right? And they make it a lot faster to build upfront, but you pay for it in the long run. I remember that when one of the companies I worked with, we used to use this tool, right, that like had like a playback function, and that made it a lot faster to write tests in the beginning, right? But it also meant that tests were a lot less reliable, right? And then you pay the penalty for that in the long run. So those are like a couple of things that you want to keep in mind when you're choosing an automation framework, all right? So, all right, so framework options, right? What are the framework options we have? There's Appium, there's XCIUSS, Espresso. Let me just put them on the screen, right? So whichever one, which one, the one you choose in any situation strongly depends on, like we said earlier, your product requirements. But one thing to note is, for example, Appium actually has drivers for XCUI test and Espresso. Actually, Appium has drivers for all three of them: XCUI test, Espresso, UI Automator. Now, the only challenge with Appium is that Appium runs slower, for example, than XCUI test, right? Because is everybody? I don't know if anybody's following along. Is anybody following along? Well, I can see some emojis. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Right, great. Thank you so much, everybody. Yes. So, for example, XCUI test is just iOS, so it runs a lot faster, right? But for example, Appium actually runs on a server client model, right? Which is you have a server that basically executes instructions on the client. So Appium can run slower than XCUI test, for example. So, if you had a strictly iOS app, right, and then your team already had experience with Objective-C, I think Jeffa can answer that one, but I think, yeah, Jeffa will answer that better. But I don't have any issues with that. What was I saying? Yes, right. So if you had, for example, if your platform, if your team, if your project is purely an iOS app, a couple of them, like for example, Clubhouse was purely iOS, right? And your team already has experience with Objective-C or Swift, then it would actually probably make a lot more sense just to write it in XC UI sense, right? Because that would give you like a lot faster, then you have native support and all of that, all right? So, is there anything else I want to mention? All right, so I decided we could have demoed a number of them, right? But I'm doing a demo of Appium. So I'm going to share my IDE for you to take a look at it. And I'll just walk through a bit of the project structure. All right. One moment. I'll just walk through a bit of the project structure and we will just, go from there. Okay, so let me stop sharing this one. Let me stop sharing the screen and switch it on. Stop. Just sorry, an error in the code screen sharing. Okay, let me know when you can see my screen, please. Okay, I'm getting an error. You know what? Let me leave and rejoin. I'm not sure if that's why the error is coming.
Okay, so while we wait for our speaker to rejoin, if you have any questions, we would appreciate you just note them down, and we have a session for Q&A. So when it's time for that, you can then send in your questions. Thank you. All right, over to you, Fehintoluwa.
You're muted in case you're speaking.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so if you just let me share my ID, maybe it feels that I have some secret code that you guys shouldn't see. And sharing my whole screen will be a bit inconvenient because there's a lot going on there. All of your Kuku programmers, any ideas why this doesn't let me share my screen? Let me try closing the app and opening it again. You know what? Let's try the whole Let's try the whole screen option. Hopefully that works. Okay, that worked. So if you can see my screen, please let me know.
Yeah, screen is on.
So I can't see you guys anymore because like this is covering you. So you might want to, if you could speak, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
And there's a lot of thumbs here, so it's not just me.
All right, great. Thank you. So if everyone can see my screen, so I'm just going to walk through. So this is actually a boilerplate, right? But it shows us like it has a lot of what we need to see, right? So I'd actually add the link to this GitHub page, to this GitHub repository in the slides, right? So you can go and check it out. So let's see, what's the first thing we want to highlight here, right? So the first thing we want to highlight here is that this uses the page object model. Now, if you've done any QA interview in the past 1 year, you probably have heard a lot about this particular framework. Where's my base page? What is the base test? So basically, right, the idea of the page object model is to shift, instead of having what you basically do in the page object model is that you're separating the functionality, right? You're separating the actual implementation from the test, right? So there's the implementation of the test, right? For example, now you have this is an identifier, right? By name. So we're looking for the element on the page that has the name integer A, right? And we're saving this as a variable in our class. Now, what that means is we now get the ability to simply access, whenever we want to get that particular thing, we can just access the variable in our code, right? So the idea is basically to separate the implementation from the actual test itself, right? So now, when you're reading the test, it's just really easy to read, right? So it says, so I don't have to be really versed in this framework to understand what this test does, right? All the test does is it enters two numbers and computes, and then it gets the sum, and it asserts that the sum equals 10. That's all. Like, it's a really easy test to read, right? And you're getting that because you've abstracted away all the implementation details into a separate page, right? Okay, my ID is still indexing. That's why it's not letting me jump to the declaration. So let's just go back to the declaration. So, for example, enter two numbers and compute. Come here. So you basically run type. So it basically takes this, right? Type first number, and then we saved the part numbers, like we saved the element parts in variables up here. And because we did that, right, we can just easily reference that by saying get element, and then we pass in the variable. So instead of having multiple, instead of having multiple parts, right, littered all over your code, you just put it in one place and then you get to access it everywhere. So yeah, as you can see, type first number, type second number, compute, get some. So these are all the functions that run in the background. Things to note about Appium: you need to add your capabilities, right? So I'm using an iPhone 14. So you specify the platform name, the specific. Remember how I mentioned earlier that Appium supports multiple. What's the word they use? Multiple drivers. Yes, multiple drivers, right? And one of them is XC UI test. So you specify which one you're using, your device name, then the location of your application on that test, which is in my test on that test app. All right. So now to make the magic happen, I should run this command, right? But it's currently, Gradle is, I typically use Maven at work, actually, not Gradle. So it's currently installing. So what I'm going to say is while Gradle is installing, right, because I have Gradle installing here, I'd say I could just jump to Q&A. So if anybody has questions, just go ahead, and then I'll just run the tests towards the end so we can see that it actually work. Questions. I promise I don't bite. All right. Abdulaziz, please go ahead. Oh, sorry, Jeff, if you want to, go ahead.
Hi, Fehintoluwa. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Hi, Abdulaziz.
Yeah, thank you for the session. There's this mindset that we do have that it's much more difficult to automate mobile application as against the web or even API. Is that correct? And how do you want we that we're just learning mobile to be thinking of getting to understand it without that fear of it's difficult? Are there pointers, are there things we should learn? Because again, that fear is there already, that once you want to automate mobile applications is another heckling tax. Thank you.
All right. That's actually a good question. Thank you very much. So I'd say genuinely the difficulty, so that might be like, how do I answer this question? The difficulty in automating mobile, right, is actually in the hardware setup, right? Because if you're automating web, you don't need to have like bother as much with hardware, right? So for example, if you want to automate iOS, right, you need to have Mac, and you probably need to have an iPhone unless you're using an emulator, right? But there's things, even though there's things like browser stack, you can use browser stack. So even if you don't have a Mac, you can also run a test on browser stack, for example. But the truth is, I'd actually say that in some ways, mobile automation can be easier than web automation. Why? Because web UI automation, like a lot more things happen on the web, right? You know, the web is built to be more reactive. So JavaScript, you have JavaScript changing things around your page all the time, right? So things like a large part of the difficulty in any automated tests is actually accurately locating the elements you want, right? Of course, there are ways around that. For example, you can just add things like on the web, you can add data IDs, you know, or just attributes in JavaScript that help you identify, you know, the elements you want to test more securely, right, or more reliably. But on mobile, it actually tends to be easier, so you don't have as much reactivity going on your page. So I'd say that in some ways, mobile automation testing is actually easier than what's the word? Web automation, right? So I don't agree that it's more difficult, right? I'd say definitely give it a hand. And then there's a ton of resources on the internet, right? And then there's also just simply the fact that most people actually interact with apps these days via mobile, right? So there's also the fact that you don't actually have that much of a choice, right? Because if you're going to have any form of, you know, mature automation, right, you probably have a mobile app, and you're probably going to have to do, you know, mobile test automation, right? So I'd say yes, it's actually in some ways it's easier, right? And then there's also the fact that because you have things like XCUI tests, well, at least for iOS, right? At least for iOS, it's actually there's less spread, right? Because when you're testing a browser, you could be testing a huge number of different, you know, browser versions are different, browsers are different. There's actually more variety for web automation tests in terms of, so now I'm thinking in terms of like running the test reliability, right? Running the test reliably, right? So there's a bit less of that with mobile tests, right? So I hope that answers the question. It's definitely not more difficult. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. All right. So Nick Abib, there is a raising hand, and somebody dropped a message in the chat. Okay, so you said, what if this was written in Flutter dark language? Maybe you want to explain the question. I'm not sure I'm fully understanding that question.
Okay, hi Feng. Good session. So I've tried testing on this Flutter that language, and I don't know if it was the developer or it was me not being able to access the element, because when I got to the when I used the inspector, I was trying to locate the elements. I've put everything. Oh, you're logging now. The thing you to log in. I met the developer. I said, Baba, what is happening now? I can't even log into this application. But everything seems fine for my code. I'm like, what's happening? Like, so I was now asking, is it that because I was able to do it on a Java language, yeah, but this particular Flutter was just like a Herculean. So I'm now wondering, is there anything different if it has to do with language specifically? Thank you.
That's actually a pretty good question, right? So I'd say I don't have as much experience testing Flutter applications, but if it was going to be language specific, right, the only thing that would be different would be a function of how Flutter compiles on the front end, right? So for example, now, let me use React as an example, right? So when you write React, right, you're writing JSX, right? You're basically writing you're not writing plain HTML or JavaScript, but on the front end, it compiles to pure HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So that means from a testing perspective, it doesn't matter whether you wrote it in React, Angular, or a bunch of other languages. As far as it compiles to the same thing on the front end, then it doesn't matter, right? It will test the same. So it will depend on whether Flutter compiles to like vanilla native code on the front or like on the mobile application, right? So if it's, for example, running React Native now, like React Native is sort of like a cover. So React Native doesn't actually compile to, if I remember correctly, like React Native doesn't compile to, what's what I'm looking for? Like the native Java Kotlin, right, on the mobile application. So that might be slightly different. So I don't know if it's the same for Flutter, right? But I'll say that if there was going to be different, it's probably going to be that. So if I were in your shoes and I wanted to troubleshoot that, right, because what you asked was what I was going to ask first, right? Which is using that exact same code, right, or that same setup, does it work for other applications, right? Then you'd also want to confirm, are you testing the same platform, right? For example, are you doing Android? Are you doing iOS? Because it could be other things, right? Then also the nature of the locators you are using, right? Because please let me know if I'm answering your question. Because sorry.
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you.
Yeah, great. So I think that pretty much answers the question. It's yeah, if it compiles differently on the front end, then that's what it calls. That's what's going to happen when you're. So that's like if it compiles differently then you get that kind of issue, right? Then another thing to check out is the locators that you have, are they dynamic, right? So do they change every single time the app is created or the app is run, right? So in which case you might have to do things like adding more durable locator so that your tests are actually hitting the correct locators, right? So those are a couple of things to look at. Then I think with the make sure they also share a really helpful link to look at.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions? I think I'd like to put, okay, Abib's hand is raised. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning,
morning.
everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much for the educative session.
Thank you.
Yeah, so first of all, I like people with glasses, so I like you.
You like what?
I said I like people with glasses. So I like your glasses.
Oh, same. Thank you.
Yeah, so my question is, when you have your test suits, you have your test cases and test suits, and then you need to, maybe you're going to perform a like a smoke or sanity test, and then you need to upload a new build, something like that. Now, for me, I used to find this like kind of time wasting at times. So the question is it possible to automate that part, whereby when there's a new build, it is maybe kind of a pipeline where the build is gotten where the build gets to run automatically or something like that. I don't know if we have that in mobile tests. I don't know if you get my question.
So I'm not sure I got the first part right. So let me tell you what I'm hearing. So I'm hearing that you are running tests, but every time a build changes, you have to manually upload the new build, right? And then
Yeah,
you're only
yeah.
the way to automate that.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Maybe then. So are you running manual tests or automated tests?
Automated tests.
Okay, so that means you're right. You're running your automated tests against a set of fixed artifacts, right? So you
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
build artifact that is fixed. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So every time the developers change the build, then your build artifacts, like you have to manually change your build artifacts, right? So you have to manually change
Yeah.
the application. So I want you to be able to automate that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's actually like a number of ways you can handle that, right? The first one would be, it depends on where your build artifact is stored, right? Because so there's multiple ways to address this. So I'm going to address it from, first of all, if you don't want to change your current workflow, right? If you want to use the exact same workflow you have, which is where you have a manual artifact the automated tests are running against, then whatever build process is creating the new build artifact, right? You can just add a step to that sends a copy of the build artifact to where your own build artifacts are, right? So let me say that again. So for example, if you have a cloud bucket on AWS, right, where the build artifact that you're running automated tests against is hosted, right? So what you could do is just work with the developers to add a step to their own CI/CD pipeline that's okay. So their own CI/CD pipeline that uploads the artifact to the place where you're storing your own build artifact, right? And that's like an easy way to automate it. The another thing is ideally, right? So that's why I said that's one if you don't want to change your workflow. Now, if you're willing to change your workflow, ideally, whatever process is creating the build artifact should also be running your automated tests to create those build artifacts, right? So you shouldn't be having you shouldn't. I'm not sure what the exact setup is, but it seems like you have a separate pipeline running your excuse me. It seems like you have a separate pipeline running your development process and your test process, right? And they should be a combined process. So if you had a combined process, what will just happen is as the building stage finishes and creates that build artifact, right? That build artifact is also going to be an input to the next stage, which is your test stage. So don't have any. I didn't prepare something I could show because the ones I have here for work. But just picture it in your head, right? It's like you have your build stage. Then after your build stage, you would have a test stage, right? And then the build artifact from the build stage would be an input to the test stage that the test will just run against, right? And then that would like solve it, and then that's best practice, right? As opposed to what's the word? Having them as separate ones. Does that help answer the question, or like are there like
Yeah.
other
Very well.
things?
Very well. Thank you very much.
Okay, good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. My pleasure. Any other questions? I'm still praying that grade will finish. I think I'm actually at overtime or out at time already, right? But let's keep our fingers crossed that the grade will finish before our time is up. Thank you, everyone. So, any other questions? Any other questions in my time? Okay. Is it possible to run automated mobile tests on Jenkins without using browser stack and a local emulator being installed on Jenkins without subscription to browser stack? So there are a couple of ways to do this actually, right? But the ways to do this like strongly depends on whether or not, right? Like it depends on the constraints behind using browser stack, because if the reason why you're using browser stack is because of cost, or why you want to stop using browser stack is because of cost, right? For example, there's things like AWS Device Farm, right, that gives you like real device to test on. But the truth is, can you install local emulators? Possibly, but it's bad practice to run your mobile tests against only local emulators, right? Because there are some quirks that real devices have, which is why you actually want to run your tests against. Because the thing with mobile testing, right, which could also have been what Abdulaziz was referring to earlier in the difficulty of mobile testing, is the fact that you're testing across a number of different versions, a number of different hardware, a number of different, all of that. So that simply means that your app is going to behave differently on different places, right? So for example, you might be testing, somebody might be using your app with 1 gig of RAM or 4 gigs of RAM, right? And somebody else might be using your app with 16 gigs of RAM, and somebody might be using on iOS 13, and somebody else might be on iOS 16, right? And then you'd want to ensure that your app runs consistently across the different platforms. So that means that you want to have a way of running those same tests across all these platforms. So can you do it with a local emulator? Quite possibly, but it would be like bad practice. So I'm not sure what the constraints are that are making you consider that particular option, right? Like what if it's a cost thing, for example, then you might really have no choice than to run it like with a local emulator, right? But yeah, that's just like best practice. So let me know the answer to the question. Then I'm sure that I know the next part of this is using Scandium to run automation tests. So Jafar, how would you like us to proceed like this at this point further?
Oh yeah, we're still coming to that session. So thank you, Fehintoluwa, for the session. Do we have any other questions? All right. So moving on, if you're on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, you can check the chat box. You can see the links. We have the links to different social media platforms. Please ensure to follow us and get to learn more about Scandium. So we have the links in the chat box. Okay. Yeah, Jafar, you're saying something. Go ahead, please.
I said we can give a minute to quickly do that. I mean, everyone, please quickly do that. You can just click on LinkedIn if that's where you use the most, or X or whatever, and just follow Scandium so you get up to dates about upcoming activities. Then we can move on to the next after that. Great, Don Adenike Agbola. Thank you. Others you can comment down too. And then in 30 seconds we can move Ben.
All right. So Adenike Agbola has a question in the chat box that says she's asking if we would have a session where they would like to see how Scandium, or how we use Scandium to run automated tests. Yes, we are getting there. So with that being said, we would dive right into a short video tutorial on how to use Scandium to automate our tests. So hope you enjoy.
Yeah, guys. So today I'm going to be showing you how you can test your mobile applications using Scandium. So from within your existing Scandium dashboard, you can create a project that is dedicated to your mobile app, and then you can upload your mobile app. So Scandium allows you to upload both iOS and Android apps using their respective app bundles. So for the iOS app, you're going to upload a zip file or a tar file that contains the app bundle. For Android, you're going to upload the APK app as generated by your software engineers. So I'm going to select an Android app to upload right now, so you can see here. So I'll save this so that the app gets created and uploaded to my profile. So this might take a minute or so, depending on the size of the file. So we're just going to be patient for like a minute thereabouts for this to upload successfully. So while that is going on, like I mentioned earlier, you can use this to test for both your Android and PK and your iOS files. So, this is very beautiful because with Scandium, you are testing your actual app. You're doing all of that within the browser. So you'll see in a minute how all of that works. It is very simple, very straightforward, and quite sure you're going to enjoy it. Okay, so our application is done uploading. It has been uploaded successfully, and we can see the app we uploaded here, Wikipedia. So we're going to be testing using this Wikipedia app. So I'm going to click on it. I can see some certain information. I can see the app version name, the app name itself, and the platform, which is an Android app. So what I'm going to do is to go on to create a new test. So I'll use either this button down here, this create test button, or the new test button up here. So I'll click on this. So once this page loads up, so this is the page where I'll do my testing. So I can see already that I have a list of devices available to me and operating system versions. So I'm going to go on, so I can see the Nexus 5, the Pixel 4, etc. So I'm going to go on to select the Pixel 6. So once that is selected, I can then tell Scandium that I want to start my recording. Before we start recording, we can see an emulator in our browser. So it means all of the tests I want to do for APK is going to happen within our browser. So we don't even need to get a physical device and things like that. So I'm going to go on to say I want to start my recording. So now, when I start the recording, the app gets installed on the emulator, and I can start to do all of my actions and interactions. So this is the Wikipedia landing screen. So I'm going to click on the continue button, continue one more time, then continue, and get started. Now once that is done, and I'm inside of the Wikipedia app, I'm going to assume the test I want to do is to search for something. So I'll click on the search box and then type my search query. So say I'm searching for donation testing. So I'll click on the first item in the results. I can see my response. So I can even try to swipe up or scroll, etc., etc. So I'm going to end the test there. So since I've gotten to the end of my test, I'm just going to go on to stop this recording. If I stop the recording, I can see a list of all the steps that I took, from the gentle tabs to the swiping and etc. So even when I typed text, I can see it in here. So I'm going to go on now to end the recording session. So I'll save this test also, so I can provide a name for my test. So I'll say Wikipedia simple search. So I need description, a timeout that should apply to each step. So I'm going to save the test right now. So once my test is saved, I can then go on to validate the action that I've done by replaying the test. So once I click on the replay button, so now the app is then reinstalled into the emulator, and then all of my actions start to repeat. So it's kind of making all of this by itself. So this starts to do the clicks that I did, then the point where I typed does it also, as you can see. So this typing is being done by Scandium, and clicking is being done by Scandium. Also does all of that. So now my test is done. I can see this test notification is the government here, all steps passed. I can see the status of each step. So there is success, success, success. So this can see very simple, very straightforward. I can use this to do regression tests for my mobile apps. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I think our guest speaker has to leave. A round of applause for
Hi
him.
guys.
Thank you very much for joining. Fehintoluwa, we really appreciate your presence. Thank you for joining. Have a great one. Ben, over to you.
Okay, so I believe, or I hope we're all having a swell session. Okay, thank you for the emojis. We can see. Thank you, thank you. Please keep it coming, keep it coming. Please do not forget to follow our social media handles to get to learn more about Test Drive and Scandium and what Scandium do in general. So, on our agenda, we talked about having a trivia question. We're going to have a trivia game session. So it's time. Drum rolls, drum rolls. Who's excited? Who wants to win some cash prizes? Who wants to win? If I don't see your emoji and you win, we will not pay you. We will not give you that cash prize. All right. Okay. So we'll just go right in. And please, just in case you're wondering, check the chat box. In the chat box, you can see the links to the social media platforms. Ensure you are following to win our money. All right. So now, to participate in these trivia questions, you can see the QR code on your screen. You can scan or you can use the link displayed on your screen. Please, we don't play politics here. Okay, so Ibrahim, are you ready?
So to participate, all you need to do is scan that QR code or visit that link, bit.ly/test drive trivia, and you would be able to join the the games. I can see Abib
Please,
and who is 60 degrees.
please, could you please send the link to
Okay.
message box?
Okay, I'll drop that now.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
We'll also be dropping the link to the video you just watched so you can see in quickly how Scandium works with mobile. By the way, if you registered for the event, we have your email, so we're going to send you the recording of this session afterwards. You also get the link to the video. So let's give 1 more minute for everybody to get set with the link so that you don't say that, okay, Ibrahim dropped the Menti link. Yeah, please use that Menti link and get to the games. If you're ready, please let us know. We don't want anybody missing out, so you don't say that it's a jury council as 360 degree. I don't know what the name is, but that's what I see here. And Habib. Like say myself go join or more and not carry this thing pass me this time around. Oh, Ibrahim, you know, tell me say you don't start now. What if it is? Oyana. Okay, guys, please watch out. Watch out. He's on. Jafar is here for the bag. Stop playing. Don't play. The question don't they hard though. Who is the T? Not nice, not nice, T, not nice. It seems I need to learn how to click faster. Like this, my clicking they take time. Now everybody get this one. Okay now. We be T, I beg. We need to have a talk in camera. We're back. We're back to the top. What? We are not back, oh. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, let me give you some aspire to perspire motivation. It's not over until it's over. You've got 5 more questions left. Don't let anybody intimidate you. You can still win this. Voila. I don't demotivate. I don't forget to click question. You didn't vote in time. No, I'm not motivating again. I beg. Make everybody demotivate themselves at this stage. Obina Isaac. Hey. You people shall want to push me out of the first 10, Abby. Continue. It's not over, my people. We can do it. I'm watching all of you in 3D. Ibrahim, if I offended you before, we can settle our scores now. This one will not be top 10 again. Everybody go get this one now. I be person they will fail am. The person they go come out for the quiz. Ooh, we go again. Who they go? Okay now. Let's see. Testers, please come on and quickly tell me the answer before this thing finish. I beg. What's the A, B, C, D, or which one? Oh God. So nobody can even be brotherly enough to come and tell me the answer. There's God. Okay. Let's see. This is the final question. It's not over until it's over. It's over finally. Hey, sorry. I lied. I lied to you. It's over. We go again has gone again. Oh yeah, we'll go again. Oh, we go again. Oh yeah, come up here. Let's see. You don't win this prize before. That's why he said we go again, Abby. Now me go collect on our prize this time.
I'm the one.
Who is the going again?
K.
Please
lie.
give him a round of applause, please.
If you lie, we strike this one out. We strike this one out.
Oh God.
Okay, let's see the top 10. Thank you very much everybody for participating. Olympic is just to win, but not to participate. Am I right? Okay. These are we go again. Abib. This name had me. Wanna help me? I beg. I'm not sure I can pronounce. Who is the person? I beg, help me pronounce your name. So I don't bother your name. I beg. I can't pay the fine. Okay, great. Thank you very much for participating. That's the third person. Who's that after him? After Edwin, I can see who have the Ibrahim. Next, can you do next slide? We've got Isaac, we've got Weez, we've got Adenike, Baby Tester, T, Nerdine, Danjuma, Tom. Thank you very much, everybody, for making. So the price is going to, by the powers conferred on and in me, by and Scandium with the permission and everything from my CEO. The winner is who? Edwin is going to go with the cash prize. A round of applause for him. I'm sure you guys know why. Do you guys know why? Please give me a round of applause. Those people that are above Edwin, they know why they are not getting the prize. If you guys
wow. Wow.
Yeah. Those two people know that they can only participate, they cannot win.
Wow.
So Edwin, you get it. A round of applause.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're most welcome. So Edwin, please drop your account details with Ibrahim so you get the cash prize. Are you saying I still APC? Okay now.
Sure, I'm dropping it now.
All right. And maybe if you drop it generally, maybe people are also going to let your account swim in some dollars. It's a dollar season. Dollar is a good thing to have at this time. Okay, let's go ahead. Then we can conclude. Again, please don't forget to follow us. How many people wait, Edwin, maybe I'm going to move to the next person. Are you following us on LinkedIn? Evidence.
Yes, I am sure. I even have your post on my Twitter self.
You don't finish, but I don't carry on. That's on a lighter mood anyways. Thank you very much everybody for participating. It's a pleasure always to have you with us. Okay, so we're going to conclude right away. Again, please follow us on social media. Please do that. And then on a final note, make sure to join us next month for the next edition of Test Drive. It is a monthly edition. If you did register and drop to your email, definitely you get invites. And please follow us on social media because you get to get any updates on different activities that we bring forth. And of course, visit app.getscandium.com to try out Scandium. Scandium is your no-code test automation solution. Whether you want to automate web testing or mobile testing or API testing, Scandium is that go-to tool, and you don't need to write a line of scripts, and then you'll be able to effectively automate your entire product. Of course, please share your feedback with us. We're happy to listen and hear from you. You can join our Slack community. The links will be dropped here, and will also always be in the mails you get. So you can, in case you are not able to pick it here, you can always pick from our emails. And yes, follow us on social media. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure having you again for the February edition of Test Drive. We look forward to having you again next month, March. And we'll be happy to, as usual, bring you guest speakers and also make the session as interesting as possible. We're happy to listen to you anytime. So please join our Slack channel and drop any feedback you might have for us. Thank you very much and have a great one.
Yeah, I just dropped my account details on the chat. Yeah.
Okay, great. Ibrahim is going to pick that up. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, the video, I'm going to drop the link to that video we played right now. You can hold on a little bit. You've been practicing with Scandium, you got some questions, please join our community. From our community, you'll be able to ask questions that you have. I just dropped the link to the video on chat as well on mobile testing with Scandium. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have some videos we put up there. As for questions regarding Scandium, please join our community on Slack. You'll be able to ask any questions to the support and feedback channel. Ibrahim, please help us drop a link to the community.